Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit Podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on the Virtual Summit Podcast. I am extremely excited about this episode with Michael Neeley. We got him right here joining us live. How's it going today, Michael?
It's going wonderful. Thanks for having me here, man. I love what you're doing with this show. It's so needed.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Thank you first for that compliment. And second, I cannot wait to dive into this information. Our summit hosts that are listening in right now are in for a treat because we're going to be talking about that elephant in the room, right? Like, are summits dead? We've all heard it. Most of us that are in the summit world, we kind of cringe up a little bit about that when we hear that. And we're going to get into that. Are they dead? I don't know. You're going to find out here in this episode. Now, before we jump into those specific details, Michael, just to let our audience know, we have Michael as the host of the Conscious Life Summit. He's also runs the live event, Your Authority Blueprint, and he does a lot more. Would you share just some interesting information about you, Michael, for our audience?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually host 3 podcasts, one called Consciously Speaking, another one, Buy This, Not That, which I'm going to love to have you on that show as well. I'm looking forward to it. And one I do just for fun is called Something to Whine About. And in addition to that, I run the Authority Academy, in which I teach the 4 foundational pillars of authority, which are podcasting, virtual summits, speaking from stage, and getting published. And so those I consider the 4 pillars of authority that are really going to take you from the best kept secret to the go-to expert in your field.
Now, I love all 4 of those pillars, and I agree with you right there. Those are foundational and fundamental. So I'm excited to pick your brain on the topic of virtual summits. Now, before we jump into that, though, where can our audience find you hanging out at?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. You can go to michaelneeley.com or yourauthorityblueprint.com.
Excellent. And for you listening in, you can always go to the show notes, podcast.virtualsummits.com, where you're going to be able to find links to everything Michael references here. Also contact information so you can reach out, follow him on social, and get in touch with him later as well. So let's get started with this, Michael. So you have done, you are a summit coach, among other things, obviously podcaster, you got your own event. Let's talk a little bit about your experience, how long you've kind of been doing it, and what kind of took you in that direction of helping people with their virtual summits.
Yeah, I love that question, Mark, because it happened for me kind of like an organic evolutionary process. I started out not even really thinking about a summit or knowing what a summit was. And even when I launched my podcast, I found out what a podcast was, having never even listened to one. And then, 14 days later, I launched my first show. And virtual summits just was almost like a natural evolution of that. Like about 6 months or so into my show, I realized I'm making all of these really cool recordings already. What if I reshaped them into another format of delivery system that at the same time could also massively grow my list and make some quick revenue? And so that's when that evolved into the Consciously Speaking podcast, evolved into the Conscious Life Summit. And so that was kind of the original way that it happened for me. And I've just been loving summits ever since. And because it happened organically for me, then other people were going, well, how did you start doing this? And people started asking me lots of questions. And so that's actually when I started teaching podcasting, teaching how to do virtual summits and supporting other people in doing theirs effectively.
So did you learn a little on your very first summit? Was it kind of that trial by fire? You kind of figured it out as you went. So
Totally.
You probably, over the course of doing your own summit and then helping all of these other successful entrepreneurs, do a successful summit, you've probably seen some pretty common mistakes. Maybe you experienced it yourself and then you were able to help these summit hosts fine tune it. What's like maybe one of the most common mistakes you see that cause the biggest impact for your summit hosts?
I would say one of the biggest challenges is in the technical side of it. It's how it's delivered and managed, and which is also why I think, you coming up with the software to handle that is brilliant, because right now a lot of people have the challenges of having to piecemeal multiple SaaS programs, software as a service programs, platforms, if you will, making them to try to work together to manage it all. And that is a chore. And that's where people, I think, fall short, because they haven't managed it and set it up properly. And then their conversion drops off and the listenership drops off, and it creates failure.
Virtual Summit's software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summit's software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
Yeah, that is definitely a downfall to kind of the world that we're in. If the technical aspect is not, most of us, for example, myself included, I'm a postural neurologist by trade, right? So I didn't exactly get taught in med school how to do any kind of WordPress or coding or anything like that. So thankfully, we do have the Virtual Summit software now, as you've mentioned. I'd like to also see, when you are with your 4 pillars of authority, for example, and specifically on the summits, let's talk about how the summits provide that pillar of authority, how it provides that.
Yeah, I actually call it the Oprah effect, which you may or may not be familiar with. I think it's becoming more and more of a common term, actually, that what happened with Oprah is she started out as just a regular television host. No popularity or anything at all. People barely knew her, but she started to get guests that were a little bit above her level, and she took a little bit of their clout, if you will, and having them on the show allowed her to then elevate her level and then even get a better guest the next time. And I think hosting summits has a very similar impact. You bring in some great guests and it elevates your authority. And that's why I consider it one of the key authority builders, because you're positioning yourself with other experts in the field, which raises your bar as well.
Yeah, I love that, and I agree completely. I call it expert leverage. You're leveraging the expertise of your guests and speakers. It's not just their expertise; it's also, like you said, their credibility, their authority, their reputation. So it is a really great way, and it's also, we've seen that, the Oprah effect, if you will. I'm going to steal that from you there, Michael.
Go for it.
We've seen that across multiple industries. Okay. So for example, as you mentioned, in TV, but we also see that in podcasting. We see it, in other areas as well. And so of course with summits, that is like a magnified, if you will, because it's not just one-on-one, you're actually bringing in, 10, 20, 30 experts as well.
Exactly.
So with that, let's get into this elephant in the room. I really want to kind of talk about this, because I know there's not a week that goes by where I don't either hear somebody naively or directly tell me, I heard summits are dead. So first off, have you heard that statement at all? And if so, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear it all the time, especially because it's one of the things that I teach. And many people say, well, oh, but I heard summits are dead, or they even are saying that, claiming it, stating it as a fact, summits are dead. I'm like, no, they're not. I think what's dead are bad summits. And that's part of the challenge, is that people come into this industry thinking, oh, yeah, I've seen a summit. I can do a summit and knock it out of the park. And no, you're not doing it right. You're making mistakes along the way, and it tanks. And therefore, then you walk away with the attitude, yeah, it's just summits. No, it's not about the summit. It's about how you're doing your summit. You probably are familiar with Ocean Robbins, who is the son of John Robbins of Baskin Robbins fame. He does a summit every year, the Real Food Network summit. I forget the exact name of his summit, but he gets like 50 to 80,000 people sign up for his summit every year. It is not dead. It's just, you got to do them right.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you said it perfectly there. Bad summits are dead. What we're seeing is, especially now with tools like the Virtual Summit software that makes it easier for people to be able to do summits, that more people are taking advantage of this opportunity. Very powerful opportunity, might I add. But a lot of them aren't getting training or getting insight or structure from somebody like yourself, or they're just trying to kind of take it on as their own. Or probably the bigger mistake I've seen summit hosts do is try and rush it. they try and get it done in 2 or 3 weeks. And how could you would never expect a major orchestrated event to be a success or land a large result if you were rushing it within a couple of weeks. So I agree with you 1,000% there. And we can get into this topic a little bit deeper in just a second. But to iterate what you were saying about summits not being dead, a good friend of mine just ran a summit called the Toxic Home Summit. And this was probably 4 months ago at this point from the recording time of this recording. They brought in 150,000 leads and made $650,000. Somebody should tell them that summits are dead because they're enjoying that summit. And I know I've got friends in all the industries doing, maybe not that level of returns or results, but still doing amazing things. So actually, let's talk about that. What's a summit recently that you've seen or helped with or maybe even done yourself, whatnot, like some good results that you've seen lately?
Yeah, well, first of all, as I mentioned, Ocean Robbins, who's a friend of mine out here in Santa Cruz, he always has great success with summits. And some of the people that I teach, like I have a person who's getting ready to do a summit on stress-free remodeling. And everyone varies a great deal. But some of the key elements I think are so important that you cannot miss is, well, one, I reverse engineer just about everything I do. And I suggest you start backwards because if you have to start with the end in mind, and that end could be it needs to be what is more valuable to you. Are you doing it mainly as a list builder? Are you doing it mainly as a revenue generator? Or are you doing it mainly as an authority builder? Because whichever one of those becomes your priority, and I'm not saying you have to only do one or the other, but you need to prioritize those because it will impact who your guests are, what your list requirements are for the people that you're going to bring on, maybe even how many people and so forth. So those factors really come into play. So I suggest that you start backwards to have a successful one. And maybe list building is small on your goal there, and it's more about authority, in which case bring on people who have big names. And even though they may not mail for it, at least it elevates your authority level. So those are things to consider.
Yeah, that's a great point right there. There are multiple goals for virtual summits. And if you go into it just thinking you're going to do all three, you probably do all three average. If you go in there, like you're saying, with this is my goal, what I want to get out of this and how I'm going to reverse engineer, as you just said, Michael, your chances of success are so much higher. So that's a great point right there. I also like the summit you mentioned. I think it's worth pointing out right here how niche that topic was. What's your thoughts on topic selection and how to create a good kind of topic for your summit?
Yeah, totally. I'm glad you focused in on that, Mark, because that is a key thing. It's, you've probably heard the expression, the riches are in the niches. And the more you can niche down that summit, I know of a person I've heard of, I don't know them personally, but ran a paleo summit. And so when you get even into dietary aspects, paleo being very specific, their summit really kicked butt. And so, yes, niche it down because then you're going to find the right audience, the perfect guests for your summit. And what you will find too, and this is also the key element as well, I teach this and same thing in podcasting, figure out, first start even with, what do you ultimately want to sell? If you're going to build this big list, you got to have something, I'm guessing, to sell to them ultimately. So figure that out. What is it you want to sell? Then second step, figure out who are my buyers, and then create the summit that is going to attract those very specific people that ultimately, whether they buy your summit or not, they're going to be on your list to buy something from you down the road. So another piece of the reverse engineering is start there.
Yeah, that's such a great point. As you just mentioned, and I've seen this mistake, and honestly, this happens quite a bit. People go, okay, I know summits are powerful. I know summits are good. I believe that. Let's go do a summit. And they go and they spend a lot of time, energy, and they build a summit, and they have successful summits, and hopefully they generate some income from that summit as well. But they forgot to actually create the next step. And, I'm sure you teach your clients this as well, Michael, but if you don't have something to give that list, that audience, they're going to go cold and they're going to go find it from somebody else. So it's much better if you want to keep them engaged that you're providing them with the solutions they want. So excellent point right there.
Yeah.
I'd like to jump into, with the theme of, are summits dead? Let's cover some of the objections that people have or that they bring up of why they're not going to do a summit, or why they shouldn't do the summit. Or, my cousin talked to somebody who ran a summit and they said you shouldn't do them because of this. Like, what are some of the common objections you hear? Let's tackle those.
Yeah. Well, I love that you bring us back to that, Mark, because one of the things that I wanted to approach about this, and I think it is one of the challenges about summits, and partially why, if there is a drop off in participation, I feel like a lot of it is because we are becoming more and more of a time crunched, immediate gratification society. We want stuff fast. We want it delivered quickly, easily consumable. And I think where summits come into play with this, and I actually coined a phrase for them, which I'm sure just putting it out there now, anybody can run with it. But I think what's going to be the future is what I call a micro summit. And so I'm working on right now the Buy This, Not That micro summit. What I mean by that is, instead of having 20 guests with 1 hour interview each, I mean, really, who's got 20 hours to listen to all of that content? But what if you reduce those interviews down to 10 minutes of just the nuggets? And thus I call it a micro summit, where each interview is only 10 minutes, but it's all the goods. You don't go into a lot of story and other stuff. You really deliver the value. And I think that's one thing that could really support and overcome that objection of a lot of people that, oh yeah, summits are so boring now because they're just so long and it's so many hours, and who can consume all of that?
I couldn't agree more with you. And I still believe, no matter what, that traditional multi-day summits are always going to be there. They just provide so much exposure. They provide so much access to so many authorities or experts to provide the solution for people that wouldn't alternatively have access to those people. So I do believe that they'll always be there, but I'm with you on this, Michael. I believe that we have to acknowledge where limitations or challenges are in our businesses in general. But for example, in summits, and I love that comment, that title, the micro summit. One of the things that I regularly talk about and show as well, which I think is probably right in alignment with where you're at, is the one-day summit. So instead of having a multi-day summit, we run a one-day summit. So it's a bite-sized, consumable content, but more than important, solution-driven event that people get a solution to their problem in a set amount of time. So we're right there on the same wavelength. I love that, the micro summit. So what's maybe another objection? So I love that the summits are dead because there's too long attention span. Like, what's another objection that you hear?
I think one of the other ones that I'm getting from people is that, and maybe it's just because of it's in my industry, but they feel like they're seeing a lot of the same people over and over again. And so, of course, what I teach people to do when they go out to do a summit is try to get somebody who's not a regular guest on all these different summits. Try to get somebody unique who brings a different flavor to the table in the conversation. So I think that's one of the challenges. And I'm curious, Mark, about some of the stuff that you hear too, because your thumb is on the pulse of this way more than mine even. I mean, since you've created this whole platform around it. So what are some that you hear even?
Yeah. So thank you. Like, reverse the role here right now. Interviewer becomes interviewee. I love this. And it's going to make this episode so incredible. You guys are in for such a treat with this knowledge. So one of the ones I hear regularly, especially since I do come from the health field, my background's originally health, that in the internet marketing space. One of the most common objections I hear is there's already too many. The field is saturated, right? I mean, you've heard that too. Which is super easy to overcome that. It's saturated if you're trying to run a generic general summit. And those aren't going to really be successful, in my opinion, anyways. The more, as we've already said, as you drop the gem, the riches is in the niches, the more pointed and problem focused you can make your summit, the easier it is to overcome that. So also with the one-day summit, one of the main things I teach with that is it's all about the problem. What are they acutely searching for? Not what are they interested in, but what are they acutely searching for? Because if your summit is based on that, and they can see that they can get the solution in a consumable amount of time, conversion rates go up dramatically. So that's one of the ones I hear a lot over in my industry. You got any more on your side, or should we jump into the next aspect of summits, which is probably going to be how to reach out to speakers. That's got to be like one of the next biggest, not objections. I think this will flow perfectly with this. It's not really an objection, but it's probably the biggest fear that I hear from new summit hosts is, I don't really have any authority. I'm not an influencer yet. How am I going to get somebody like Michael Neeley on my summit? How do you help them with that?
Yeah, that's a great question and segue as well. And it is a challenge. I mean, that is one of the things people face is like, how do I get good people for my show? And I got to share one of my secrets that, again, I just kind of stumbled on it. When I was creating the Conscious Life Summit, I needed experts in 12 different fields of conscious lifestyle. And I didn't know anybody in the world of conscious parenting. And so what I did is I went to Amazon and I searched for the top ranked books in conscious parenting. And I reached out to those authors. And one of them shot back and said, yeah, I'll be in your summit, and ended up being my biggest converter on my summit. Sent me more people and had better conversions from that one person who I did not know from Adam. It was just a cold outreach through Amazon. So totally doable. Just, you'll be amazed at who you can get. And I think it is important to try to find some people who have some list size and have some clout, and maybe they are best-selling authors out there. So just look, and you'll be amazed at what you can get.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your virtual summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummits.com.
Yeah, that is great. And then you probably were able to drop in a little bit of an affiliate link there to the book and generate additional revenue and income, which I'm going to write that down because I want to come back to the income generation. But before we go there, what about promotions? Because this is another challenge that a lot of summit hosts have, is getting those speakers, those influencers, not just to speak on the summit, but to actually promote them. What are some of the tactics or strategies that you talk about or that you teach to get the guests to promote the summit?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do put together an agreement that they need to sign, and I use DocuSign to make sure that they've committed to it. And that commitment will typically be that they do 2 solo emails and that they do some social media posting. And of course, this is where the balancing act piece comes in, as I'm sure you know, Mark. It's sometimes you may have a guest who's got a bigger name and a bit more clout, and you may waive some of those stipulations in order to get them on there for the clout factor, versus others who may, have a smaller list. And by the way, and that's the other piece about it too, is you do want to make sure you have some list requirements, which serves everybody in the summit. It's really going to tick off some of the people. If you've got somebody with big lists and then you allow these people in who have a list of 500 or fewer, it can really tick off some of your bigger names because the balance does not weight back into their favor at all. So these are some of the key pieces that I think are important as you're looking at that coordinating, getting that promotion going, especially if you're going to have somebody with a big list and they're going to promote for you.
Yeah, it's so true. And I guess I hadn't even looked at it like that. I'm always thinking of it more from the summit host perspective, but those speakers, those influencers, they actually have more to lose almost than some of the others. So it's really important to keep them in mind and make sure you're protecting and actually helping them. So that's a great piece of information right there.
Yeah.
Let's dig into this even deeper. So what are some of the suggestions that you teach your students on offers? So of course, like rev share. What are some additional kind of creative solutions that they can do when asking their speakers to promote?
Yeah, so I think one of the key pieces is to let them know that you did have a minimum requirement on the list size, because the bottom line of it is anybody who's doing any type of email marketing, that every mailing that you send out, you're going to have a certain percentage that are going to opt out of your list. And so especially if you're not giving value, if you're promoting something else, the opt-out rate can tend to be a little bit higher than if you're just giving value. And not that a summit isn't valuable, but it's going to happen. And so you want to be sure that for every person that they may lose from their list, that they're going to get fresh leads into them. And so one of the things that I found in negotiating that with getting people to not just promote, but getting them to commit to your summit, is giving them, especially if it's your big fish, your whale, if you will, You want to give them some extra bonus features, like they could be your keynote of your piece. So you're going to promote their talk a little bit more. You load them towards the front end of your summit, because the other thing that happens naturally in summits, and we talked in the green room chat prior to starting this session that we wanted to cover some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And part of that is that, your listenership tends to drop off. You'll get a lot more people listen to the earlier episodes, and then it trickles down over the course of the summit. So you're going to want to position your whales more towards the front end and give them extra promotion. And of course, sometimes it may even mean, whereas let's say, if you're doing a summit that typically you're not making lots of offers, but you may want to offer that as a bonus to some of your higher end people, to say, I'll allow you to make an offer of a $99 or $197 product or something like that. And then of course you can negotiate into your affiliate share too.
Those were such great insights into that. I didn't even, think about how to position that prior to this, on the fact that it does tend to go off, later on in the summit. There is, there's two aspects of this. So what you said, Michael, is so spot on, that giving your keynotes, your top influencers on the summit, a higher or further or earlier position. But there is one other aspect for those later on that you can kind of sweeten the deal and make it sound good for them as well, which is you're going to be promoting it throughout the whole thing. So they're going to pick up more leads later on. So you can try and make it sound as beneficial as possible for everybody as well. But definitely give those influencers, that front spotlight. Another piece of insider information I'd say that you can offer to your influencers is you have the opportunity to negotiate with them, not monetarily. I typically don't recommend paying the speakers for a summit, although that is definitely an option. But you have a lot of negotiating room with that big list you're going to be generating. So if you don't want to have them pitch something on the summit, which is totally a great opportunity as well, you can give them the opportunity to either do a partner webinar, to promotional emails, a blog post, whatever, to that list afterwards, which is an extremely valuable incentive. What do you think about that? Have you heard people do those before as well, Michael?
Totally. And the other thing that is really popular as well that I found and used is that you can have that particular guest even offer some kind of a really cool bonus as a free thing, a lead magnet, so that more of the list will, head over towards them by giving them that really cool offer that you will then promote out to the list, even during the promotional phase. So there's lots of little ways you can barter around this that have nothing to do with money. Which all are very effective.
Yes, and it's key. This is what we're talking about specifically with here, is getting your speaker to promote. So these are extremely valuable insights that you can use on your summit to get those speakers to promote, which is going to increase the result in essentially the success of the summit. Let's talk some income. Let's talk about how to increase. Well, let's talk about for our newer summit hosts, Michael, what are the typical ways that we would monetize a summit? And then what are some ways we can increase money from our summit?
Yeah, great questions all. I think one of the best ways to monetize your summit, of course, is to actually sell the recordings for people to have. But that alone is not going to cut it. I'll just say that right up front. And typically, standard summit methodology, at least in my industry, is that you make it available for 48 hours, and after 48 hours it gets pulled down. And so anybody who wants access beyond those 48 hours will pay to get lifetime access or to be able to download and keep. Now, again, that alone though is not usually going to be enough to incite people to invest, and typically I see this go usually anywhere from $47 up to $197 or so. What I find is going to be the best piece is and this is where it pays back to your guests as well, your guest experts, get some of those people to throw in bonuses, not just basic free lead magnet bonuses, but something of a little more substantial value as bonus offers, that when someone pays to own those summits, they're also going to get these extra bonuses. And I've had people throw in bonuses that include, their book. It will include 30-minute coaching sessions. I've seen it include recordings and videos and all types of different stuff that are not your normal lead magnets, but stuff that actually has some value to it. that now someone pays $47, they're going to get the recording, but they're also going to get these 5, 7, 10 bonuses, whatever it is. That's going to increase the number of conversions that you get there. And then it's really going to help the people who are throwing in the bonuses too, because you could offer them the affiliate fee for anybody who does commit that came from their list. Now they're going to get a split as well.
It's so true here. And the fundamental of what you're saying is be creative. Think outside the box. Come up with something different. Don't just follow the standard. See what the standard is and how can you spice it up a little bit. I always say, Michael, here's what you need to be successful. But if you really want to be successful, you need to go over and above and come up with something. Spice it up ultimately. So,
totally. Mark, I want to add a piece before we jump into the next.
Let's do it.
Yeah, reflecting back to this summit that I'm supporting right now, the stress-free remodeling, here's another little thing to think about. Like, I remember when I bought my GoPro camera, I found somebody online who had a coupon for $100 off a GoPro camera that was selling the coupon for $50. So he makes $50. I save $50 still in addition to that. So I bought that coupon for $50. Okay, so think about this as you're doing a summit, especially it works really well in her field for stress-free remodeling. She can go out there and get some big sponsors who will throw in these awesome coupon values that then the guests alone, they go, wow, I'm going to save $200 on a new window frame. It's worth it for me to pay $50 for this summit. So little things like that can really spice it up. And like you said, just get creative.
I love that. I've never heard of that one before. So this is incredible. Like, this has been such great information. As we're starting to wind up this episode, I want to go a little bit further on the income aspect because it is extremely important for our summit hosts. So we've talked about how to generate income from the actual summit. So now I'm sitting there with a list of 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 or more. How do I make my money now, Michael?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of really important things to pay attention to here. One, and some understandings too. Again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Part of the ugly is to understand that of that list that you just generated, a lot of them are going to drop off almost immediately. They came in, they got what they wanted, they're going to say bye-bye. Don't worry about that. You're there to serve the ones who stick around, okay? And so that's part one. Let them go, and with a blessing. And then for the others that are still sticking there, you want to have, it's super important to have some form of an indoctrination campaign. And what that is in your mailing, for those of you who may not have heard of an indoctrination campaign, it's important when someone first gets added to your list to send them a series of emails, quite a few actually, over the first week or two, so that they get to know you. And always give them value in these. Have everyone be value bombs. I mean, just loaded with good information that they're going to look forward to opening your email. Because otherwise, if you get all these people on your list and now you don't mail them for a month, they will have forgotten who you are and will likely opt out of your list and maybe even file a complaint because they don't remember. So you got to indoctrinate them right away to expect these emails from you. And so have a lot in the beginning, and then it can trickle off. So that's just keeping your list management going properly. And then during this, give. And then you can put in an ask. And so that ask might be something simple as, it could even be a follow-up. Do you want to we have these bonuses and still have the summit recordings if you want to get that. And then whatever else it is that you have that you sell, continue to set yourself up as the expert and offering good stuff before you then start to maybe spice in a little bit of like, hey, I've got this webinar that maybe you'd like to attend to get some more details about this stuff we've been talking about. And the webinar then could lead them into a purchase. And so depending on how you've got that piece of the funnel built out, it's just important to really manage those guests who are now on your list.
Yeah, that is so true. And I love that. If you don't, and I've seen this happen both to myself and others, that if you don't communicate with them over the period of the next couple of weeks, they're going to definitely drop out. And it always surprises me how they don't remember who you are. But some of them are going to be like, who is this person emailing me? Such short attention span.
Yep.
And I would add a couple other insights to the monetization strategy as well. What I've seen is currently, there's lots of strategy, but two of the ones that I love right now currently is one that I talk about is the customer journey aspect. And that's going from the summit to like a medium priced kind of product, info or digital product that's based around the problem that the summit was was on. And then from there into a high ticket like transformation, and then into a membership. Another one that I'm recently loving, and this is if you have a high ticket option. So the other one is if you're kind of building this as you're going. So for our new summit hosts out there, you can build that each step of the way. You don't have to have it all done like before the summit launches. Now, for those of our experienced entrepreneurs or seasoned entrepreneurs, if you've already got like your high-end ticket, what I've seen being working really well is after the summit, having the people that are interested pay for a coach or kind of like a consultation or a call with you. So it could be anywhere from $45 to like $200. And then on that call, you would then sell them into your high ticket coaching program, and they can apply that money to it. So these are both options are extremely great ways to monetize and use that summit to make some money. So this has been great insight. Michael, we're going to be wrapping this up here, but before we go, I would like to hear what's like a tool other than Virtual Summit software, like what's a tool that you use or love that our summit hosts should check out?
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
This is funny. I actually created a pretty cool little template in Excel, which I handle, because one of the big things that the challenge of doing a summit is wrangling all of your guests. I mean, there's so many levels of stuff that you need from them. You got to book the interview, you got to record the interview, you got to get their bio, you got to get their headshot, you got to get their free offer, you got to get their links. I mean, it's just step. I created a pretty cool Excel spreadsheet. I have not made that publicly available, but maybe I should. Maybe we'll create a link, and I can put that out there if you would like to offer it to your tribe. That I think is a really super tool for managing your summit overall. Other than that, I mean, I think the software is the big thing, is to, and you've really nailed that down for them with that. Because you're going to want to. I mean, there's so many little pieces. I mean, you can even talk about, like, it looks like your microphone there. It looks like an ATR 2100 would be my guess from just a little bit I can see of it. A great microphone, good lighting if you're doing it on video. If you're doing an audio, just make sure your sound quality is good. I suggest that you try to get some good music in it. Just make it entertaining and fun, and all of those little pieces. It's paying attention to the detail. I know that's not a great answer to your question all over the map, but
that's an amazing answer, actually, because those are all pieces. I mean, Michael just kind of glosses through that because that's second nature for him, but it is so important for all you new summit hosts out there. Take the time to make it entertaining. I mean, that is so true. It's so important. I talk about how one of my KPIs for my summits are how many lives are changed. And I measure that by how many people reach back out to me and say, this changed my business, or it's changed my life. If it's like a health, like how many people reach back out to you. And if you start to measure that and you focus on it, you will elevate the quality of your summit to be that, which will then improve the success of the summit across the board. So I think that information you just shared straight on point with that. Lights, sound, music, microphone, all of that. So I love that. So as we wrap up here, Michael, I'm going to let you, any other kind of final words of wisdom that you want to share with our summit hosts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I would just say, if anybody out there is telling you that summits are dead, just understand it's like this. And I equate it to just about every industry. And by the way, in the world of podcasting, they're saying that like 93% of the shows don't even make it past 6 or 7 episodes. You know what? Great. Let all those people drop to the wayside. The cream will rise to the top. And the same thing is happening in the world of summits. Do it right. Get some good coaching and support. Talk to Mark. Talk to me. Find somebody who can help you to make a great summit, and you will have success with it.
That's so true. I mean, how many times have we heard email's dead now, right? Like podcasting's dead, webinars dead. I know people in every one of those industries who are crushing it. I know new people who just get started in those industries and are crushing it. So you make an excellent point. So all you summit hosts out there listening to this, summits are not dead. The conclusion here, as we wrap this up, the conclusion, summits are not dead. By far, they're far from dead. As we talked about, bad summits are dead. That just means you've got to elevate your game. And if you add factors like KPI as lives change, you know that's going to happen. So focus on the things that are going to make the biggest impact. Focus on the things that are going to improve your summit, and you're going to have a successful summit. And also, don't give up. I'd throw that in there too, Michael. Maybe the first summit is not your best summit ever, but you can always run another one. You can run one later on, maybe an annual one as well. So don't give up. Michael here is an amazing source of information. So we're going to link to all of this information. We're also going to put a link on the show notes to Michael's spreadsheet. We'll make sure you guys have access to that, and also directly to Michael so you can reach out to him, ask him more information, see how he can help you as well. And of course, guys, it is so important. Summits are one of the most powerful ways to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and of course, impact the world with your message. So Michael, I just want to say thank you one more time for taking the time out of your schedule. This has been an extremely fun podcast for me to record. So thank you so much for being here with us.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Mark. I love what you're doing. Keep it up, brother. I so appreciate you.
Absolutely. And for our summit hosts out there, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.